Mm-hmm. Close. Okay. Right. All right. Mm-hmm. Actually, just... Oh, right. Okay. Just trying to... Mm-hmm. Okay, just... Right. Just trying to share this. If it loads, there it is. I can see it now. All right, finally. All right. إن الحمد لله وكفاه والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فسلام الله على القوم أهلا وسهلا بكم ومرحبا Juan Layth, bienvenidos a todos, Pakher Ragle and Swagatam people, Swagatam. Right, Hisan is asking, can you see me? What games are you playing? Ibrahim from Coventry, Avra, Ifzal in the house, Ahlan wa sahlan bikum. Wa marhaban, marhaban, marhaban. What's going on, people? What's going on? I take it you can all hear me. I did plug this in after going live, the detached microphone, so I hope it's okay. Usually I plug it in before, so I'm not sure. Is Pakistan an Islamic country? Yes or no? Allah, is it yes or no? Yes, no. What is an Islam? What does the term Islamic country actually mean? How did you learn Arabic? Naam. Ya lahu min safar. Ya lahu min safarin ilmi. But it's an awesome journey to learn the Arabic language. If you can see me, I'll put some clothes on. In that case, we'll pretend we can't. Well, right. So, do you have a Patreon account? No, that's actually something I'm considering. I'm considering to set up. All right, people. So what's going on? What's going on? What's been happening in these past few days? As always, there's some. Where are your drinks at? My drinks are right here, people. My drinks are right here. You know, sitting down without drinks is so... I don't know what it is. Sometimes I just get so... Even when I sleep, I have to have some drinks. Besides my bed, so I have to wake up with a straw in them so I can go and go back to sleep. What's life, huh? What's life, people? So, what else has been going on? What's your diet? It's not good enough. I'm trying to improve it these days. I wonder who your partitions are gonna be. What does that mean? Your partitions? No idea. No lo sé, mi hermano, no lo sé. Know any good Arabic grammar books? There's so many Arabic grammar books. How did I learn Arabic? I initially learned Arabic through... how did I learn Arabic? I initially learned through just books. I studied Dr. Surti's Quranic Arabic, which I do recommend to people. It's an amazing... I found it an amazing book, and I probably finished that maybe when I was about 17, actually. So many a lifetime away, a lifetime ago. That's what it was. And I pretty much just studied that on my own. And I did have some interim lessons with people, and then I signed up at a local college and did some evening classes, and then wherever I could pretty much go for certain courses, I did that. But that was all probably within the course of a year. And then I set off on the road to Damascus, ila Dimashq. So that must have been in maybe late 1997. Whoa. Maybe late 97, approaching 98. Yeah, that kind of time. And so I set off on the road to Damascus, and then I spent a while there. But even in Damascus, even though I did study in institutes including Damascus University and Ma'had al-Fath, Ma'had al-Fath, we only just why am I saying Ma'had al-Fath? Ma'had al-Fath, although I did visit and try to, but they were too strict with their they wanted like 8-year programs. And Ma'had al-Amaniya I went to, which was in Mazzeh back in that day and age. I mean, I don't know what Damascus is like right now, unfortunately, but in all honesty, and then probably was there for about maybe 1 to 2 years, and then traveled to Pakistan. But most of my Arabic learning, when I got to Damascus, I already knew the basics of Arabic. I already knew how to navigate. It was just I wasn't familiar with the conversational style. So I wasn't, it's like when people would say something, I would think, oh, that makes sense. So that's how you say it. It wasn't that I was a stranger to the grammar or it's just how you put it together. I wasn't so familiar. I could try and think of it on the spot, but I wasn't sure, is that how people use it? So the usage came to me through conversation, and I just really talked my way through learning Arabic then. I talked and talked and talked so much. Right, so I really, I would spend these vampire sessions when I was there. When I was there, within probably for the first few months, I was at Ma'had al-Amaniya. I did a summer course there, and then I left that and started doing, after the summer course was about a 3-month course, and then we finished that, and then I signed up at Damascus University for their kind of Arabic course, and I was just 18 at the time, so anyway, I mean, that was all beneficial. I think it was amazing. I did private lessons, private fiqh, private this, that. But a lot of my practice came that there was these guys we got to know, good people. I wonder what really has become of them or where they are now. There were some North African kind of brothers at the time, one from Tunis and one from Algeria, and they were going through certain difficulties of their own, and they kind of neighboured us, as in they lived close to us. We would go to the same masjid and things. So we got on with them well. They were going through some financial difficulties, and we said to them, there were 2-3 of us at the time, and we had this whole kind of house to ourselves. So we said to them, look, if you guys are struggling, why don't you guys move in with us? And they kind of needed that opportunity, I guess. But one of them, me and him would just have these vampire dialogue sessions. We would just chat and debate and argue and everything. But I mean, in a friendly way. And we would spend the whole, like, this would start at something like midnight or 11, and it would go right through till like Subah, Fajr. And so that's really where I must have, that took my Arabic from here to up there, because we would only speak Fusha, clear Arabic, and so that was it really boosted my Arabic for months on end. That's how I used to just speak, debate. And you know, when you're debating, you have to get your point across. So you're like, la kalla, la. And so you're trying to prove your point, and so you're very eager to express yourself, and so that really helped me a lot back then. So that was my beginning. After that, I pretty much really knew Arabic. I think and then I suppose like any language, you always go on to improve your expression. But I think that was, language is like you reach a certain plateau, a certain level, after which you've got it. It doesn't, after that, you never really forget it. Maybe at times you might not speak it so much, and then you might just go into a place and so now, because I don't speak Arabic that much, although I read a lot in Arabic, but I'm just saying, so when I travel, let's say I travel to an Arab country, within like one day, by the second day, it will be totally full fluent again, and I'll just be speaking, and even sometimes answering the wrong person in Arabic, and then you'll probably be dreaming in Arabic, but that's how languages work, you see. So, but in this day and age, there's so much. There's social media, there's apps, for my Spanish, I use several apps now, and I try to watch things in Spanish, and I try to pick up on that. But yeah, so well, those of you learning Arabic, I hope that's of some inspiration. You can go out there, and if all else fails, just get yourself an Arab wife. Not. I'm not promoting, nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying, if all else fails, that will always succeed. So I just need to take that advice on Spanish, I guess. So I'll have to take some uncharted adventures in Latin America, and then come back either dead by the cartel or having an awesome, incredible experience. So, right, so women traveling without mahram. Allah, answer this one, please. This one, no, this one. This one. Women can travel without a mahram. Watch my video on it. I've gone through the whole detailed analysis of all the hadith. This is entirely a misunderstanding, people. Of course women can travel. The whole thing was to do with safety in the past. Sherry is saying, oh, I thought that was I do not want an Arab wife, I want an Arab husband. Allah. Maybe if there's some Arab people on here, Arab guys, right? Hola us. That's it. Say us, marhaban, and we can just maybe just do a bit of matchmaking right here. So your thoughts on the peace conference. All right, this is interesting. What memory techniques do you use? Okay, I suppose I'll answer that because it's still linked to what we're speaking about. Right, so memory techniques, I think before I used to use a lot of these kind of things. I don't know, maybe it's old age now. You know, speaking about this on a tangential note, I met up yesterday with some very old friends, speaking about like 1997 and back then, and some of these guys from, I mean, I'm still in Birmingham, but born and raised, and more so in a different end in Handsworth, and which is in Birmingham, but a different end on the other end. And so I met up with some friends yesterday that I did go to part of college with, or maybe school, or chilled out with back in those days. And wow, I gotta say, it's like it's chatting to these guys about stuff, about people still from there. It felt like a different life. I gotta say, it felt like a lifetime away. Like was it even real, or was it just surreal? Or it's amazing, really. Just So, but it was good to see that some of them had really taken an interest in the deen and started studying to some extent, and it's fascinating and just catching up. So that's all some amazing stuff. I thought I'll mention that. But back then I was really using, I think I was using a lot of memorization. I used to memorize stuff like mad back then. I don't so much anymore. I don't know why, or but back then I was really with the whole Arabic, and I used to memorize Arabic grammar, certain books. I used to memorize them. I did do a lot of that back then. So now with my Spanish, I don't really do any of that, but maybe I should. But maybe I should. Sheikh Hamza Yusuf got betrayed quickly, even the smallest support for UAE and Saudi Arabia, and the Shu'ubiyun will go nuts. You know, this whole thing, I want to speak about this whole UAE, what was it called? Hilf al-Fudul, which is they translated it as the Alliance of Virtues Conference. It's a peace conference. Mizzy said, I grew up in Handsworth. No way. All right. That's what we're talking about. All right. So now, right, this conference, I think this was it the 6th conference or something like this, and it's pretty much hosted. I mean, it's supported and set up by, or not set up really, but facilitated by the UAE government. But it's pretty much hosted by Sheikh Abdullah bin Bay, as far as I'm aware. I could be wrong, and Sheikh Hamza Yusuf is, I think, the VP, the vice president of the whole forum and things like this. And a lot of people went to this recently, some of the scholars and other people, and people were going nuts about this online. Now, what's my thoughts about all of this? I think personally that, look, people are just being, personally, this is what I think. I think people are just being stupid. Look, it's a conference for peace. I get the fact that people are saying this is an irony. They're saying that why is the UAE supporting Saudi Arabia and in its war against Yemen, which I totally agree with. But what's if they do happen to do something good as well? Why can't people just take the good? What's the big deal? And they're saying, well, oh, but they also supporting that they are doing wrong. I clearly say. But all these people online that are hating, expressing hate on Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya, and other people that went from I saw Sheikh Adam Kelwick, who's an amazing imam from Liverpool, does great groundwork, at a grassroots level, da'wah, humanitarian charity work. I saw him getting really kind of attacked online by people. And really, if you look at those people that are hating on these, who are they? Just look at them. And they keep bringing this up. Oh, the Yemen, they're against, or UAE are against Yemen. And I agree that's a valid point. But all these people that are bringing up this point, they never condemn Saudi Arabia. Never. And Saudi are the biggest culprits in leading that goddamn war against Yemen. Right? They never condemn Saudi Arabia. The other thing is all these people that are kind of hating on Sheikh Hamza Yusuf or Sheikh bin Bayya or Sheikh Adam Kelwick, or there was Dr. Umar Al-Qadri, or these kind of people that, I recognized. I'm sure there must be many other people there, right? But that were hating on them online for being at this conference. These people are if you look at them, just go into their profiles, they're all extremists. They are all pretty much either extremists or extremism sympathizers. They are people like Hizb ut-Tahrir, who are an extremist, cancerous organization, right? I don't know how the UK allows them to operate, right? But they are a cancer in, alhamdulillah, dying cancer, but they are a cancer. And It's people like that. It's people basically who are calling to global rule, dominion. We need to rule the world. We want to rule the world. We? Who the hell is we? Right? So it's people with this kind of power-hungry complex about global dominion that are hating on people like Sheikh Hamza Yusuf. So right now, Hizb ut-Tahrir do hate Saudi Arabia, but I was speaking about a lot of the people who are criticizing, but even they do not go on a campaign against Saudi Arabia. So Hizb ut-Tahrir are not on a campaign hating against Saudi Arabia. Although they hate every single government in the world, because according to Hizb ut-Tahrir, every government in the world are kafir. They're taghuts, they're false gods. Right? So they believe that Muslim countries ought to topple their governments, have a goddamn civil war, and then rule in the name of whatever their version of Islam is. And nobody even knows what their version of Islam is. So these people are massively extremists. If you go to their websites, all the hadith they use are the same hadith that are used by ISIS. You just go to their websites, Hizb ut-Tahrir, you can see. So it's not just about Hizb ut-Tahrir. Whoever these people were, you just see online that they were hating on Sheikh Hamza Yusuf for having this peace conference, hating on most of them, not all, but most of them are just either, they are usually non-violent extremists. They are people that are kind of right-wing, fascist Muslims who may not express violence themselves, but deep down have a soft spot for violent people in the Muslim world. Now, that's why I couldn't really care less what these people say. These people themselves are a goddamn cancer. And alhamdulillah, that as time moves on, we're finding that more and more, especially younger Muslims, are just fed up. They're fed up with religion anyway, as a whole, and then they're pretty much fed up with these kind of people, and they can't relate to them. So this is why, so that's a good thing, alhamdulillah. So you find that younger people don't really want anything to do with political Islam, because there is no such thing as political Islam. Okay, Islam did not come for politics. In fact, there's a really, let me give you a relate to you an answer that I heard from Allama Javed Ghamidi Sahab. I thought this was, I saw a clip of his on recently on YouTube, where he's asked a question, and somebody said to him, well, if a prophet, let's say the prophet was to come hypothetically in the 21st century, like now, what do you think the difference would be? Right. So they like, do you think the Sharia would be different? Do you think they would be trying to set up a government? Do you think they would be activating in participating in the UN? Would they be, what do you think the role of this prophet would be? If, let's say, as a hypothetical question, if the prophet was to come in our day and age, as opposed to 1400 years ago. Now, he gave an amazing response. He said that, you see, all you have to do, he said this is hypothetical, of course, but all you have to do is look at the history of prophets. He said, look at the Quran, look at the Sirah, but look at the prophets before us. Look at the Bible. He said, look at the Old Testament. He said, prophets have come, so many, countless. They never came to set up governments. They never came to rule. There may have been an exception between one or two of them that ended up ruling, like Dawood, David, and Solomon. But they generally, by and large, prophets never came to rule. Look at Moses, Jesus, Abraham, Noah. These prophets never came to set up a politics. They never came to participate on, right, let's clear up the international relations. They never came for that. Ever. They always came to just remind people that, look, this world is not the end of it all. that after death there is continuity. That ultimately, although we cannot see it, and although we cannot physically perceive, but there is a creator to this cosmos. That's the message they simply came with. Everything else was secondary or tertiary. And I thought that that was an amazing response. And it's true, because if you're going to say even the laws that the prophets brought, they all brought different laws which contradict each other. Like, so here alcohol is allowed, here it's not allowed, here this is allowed, here that ain't allowed, here this meat is haram, here that meat is halal, here this is... These kind of things were never the reason why prophets were sent. Because in all honesty, man, it would be capable of making law. Man is not incapable of making law. Humans, just look at these societies. We have arguably today, one of the arguments against religion today is, what does religion have to offer for me? Because Muslims have fallen victim to this propaganda of political Muslim fascists, extremists, with this whole, it's all about the laws, it's all about the laws. That today they look stupid when they say to people, oh, when people ask them, what's Islam got for me? What do they say? Laws? Are you having a laugh? What kind of laws? What laws do you think? Do you seriously, what the fiqh books, like these fiqh books, I could open these fiqh books and read these laws to you. You yourself will be shocked to death about some of the laws that the scholars have made up along the way, day and age. You wouldn't, you see, is that not part of the Sharia? Is fiqh not part of the Sharia? Is the Sharia not fiqh? What else is, people don't you know what's amazing is people say Sharia, Sharia, Sharia. Ask them, what is Sharia? Nobody seems to know. Nobody knows what Sharia is. Ask them, what is Sharia? Like, tell me detailed. Like, don't just say, oh, it's the Quran, because the Sharia is not the Quran. The Quran is the Quran. Right? So, what is the Sharia? When you say Sharia, we want Sharia, we want Sharia. What is Sharia? It's fiqh. That's what it is. Right? So, it's fiqh. It's the books of jurisprudence, of law. Have you ever read these books of law? You'll be so surprised that over 98 to 99% of, at least I would say like 98% of them, if not more, are just man-made stuff. They're just like one scholar saying, look, I think this sounds right to me, let's go with this, I think this sounds right. Let me, you know what? There was a scholar who shared something. Let me read it out to you. Since I'm on this topic, right, just to give you an example of how these things... There's a scholar by the name of Sheikh Kashif Khan, and he was sharing an example from Shafi'i fiqh. This is Shafi'i fiqh. Check this out. And by the way, HT love this fatwa. Or at least this scholar Taqiyuddin Nabhani did in his books. Nevertheless, but forget them. Right. Here's a question. This is in a fiqh book, okay? A Sharia book. Because Sharia is fiqh, which means basically fiqh means anything beginning with purification. So wudu, the 5 pillars of Islam, then all the transactions, mu'amalat of marriage, divorce, dietary laws, penal justice code, punishments, renting, buying, selling. So pretty much all of these books that you can see, you can't really see many of them here, but all of these books are all Sharia books, are all fiqh. So I could pick them up, go to the section on buying, selling, renting, doing all of this, right? So inheritance, criminal justice code, things like this. So they have all of these in there. So here from the Shafi'i madhab, Sheikh Kashif Khan had shared from Australia. He had shared something on, this is from the Hashia of Bujayrmi upon Khatib. And also Allama Al-Qalyubi, a Shafi'i as well. Great major scholars from several hundreds of years ago. You've got, right, okay, Bujayrmi from about 200 years ago, the other one from almost 400 years ago. So what can you, now check this out. This is from Sharia, yeah? So what can you see of a woman? Now check this out. وشمل النظر ما لو كان من وراء جدار أو مهلهل النسج. So he's saying, okay, you can't see a woman, even if you're going to try to, you could make her out from behind some curtain or something like this. You shouldn't be. وخرج به. Look, what is exempt, what you can see pictures of women on. Look, check this out. به وخرج به رؤية الصورة في نحو المرأة. So if it's a mirror image, you can see it, right, of a woman. ومنه الماء, and if it's a reflection from water, you can look at her. فلا يحرم ولو مع شهوة. So this is not haram to see, even if she's naked and even if it's with desire. This is from the fatwa book of the Sharia book of Sheikh Allama Al-Bujayrmi in his commentary. Right now, the Hashia, right, also Sheikh Al-Qalyubi as well before him said a similar thing. وَخَرَجَ بِهِ رُؤْيَةُ الصُّورَةِ فِي الْمَاءِ أو في المرأة. And what is exempt is looking at women that can be naked, whether it's in a picture of them, so somebody's drawn a picture of them, and this is from 400 years ago, by the way, or from in a mirror. فلا يحرم ولو مع الشهوة. Okay, this is an example to show you Sharia. What is Sharia? Like, right now, I know by me quoting that fatwa, all of a sudden the Shafi'i madhab, overnight the subscription is going to go skyrocket. Right, so so all of us on this fatwa, we're going to all be following the Shafi'i madhab now. Imam Shafi'i in his grave is going to be turning like, what the hell just happened? How come I got like a spike in followers overnight? How come they only follow me on one mas'ala which isn't even my mas'ala? But my point of saying this is nobody really knows what they mean when they say, I want Sharia. So it's always good to ask people, because you'll confuse the hell out of them. You know, when people say these things, like somebody had asked, is Pakistan an Islamic country? What does that mean? So they will say, a country that rules by Islam. So you say, well, what does that mean? Can you explain to me? And then I can answer. So they will say, yes, a country that rules according to the Sharia. Say, oh, so what is the Sharia? So they will say, well, it's, you know, rules according to the Quran. And so you say, well, what, can you name me a book that has the Sharia in it? And this is what you have then, fiqh books. And there's no such thing as one Sharia. There's the different madhabs, the Maliki madhab, the Shafi'i madhab, the Hanafi madhab, the Hanbali madhab. And before them, there were hundreds of madhabs. And then these madhabs all disagree massively disagree, from one person saying all this is halal to another. Look, like I just quoted there. And by the way, I never said I endorse it. I just quoted from the Shafi'i madhab, from Allama Qalyubi and these other people saying that, well, you know, looking at naked women, if it's a reflection, it's not haram. Now you've got one scholar saying something like that. You've got another scholar saying it's all haram. You've got another scholar on a different issue, let's say what you can eat. The Maliki madhab saying, well, everything is pretty much halal, apart from pig. Everything else is not haram. Whether every single creature from the sea, every amphibian is halal, every bird in the sky is halal, every creature on earth except pig is not haram. That's like the Maliki madhab. Then you're going to have the Hanafi madhab saying almost everything is haram to eat, with the exception of a few docile creatures. So, like, what does the Sharia mean? What does it mean? It's just interpretations of scholars. They've just one group interpreted one thing, it became popular. Another group interpreted another thing, it became popular. Right, so Mufti Saab, you're about to be refuted by the entire planet of scholars. No, this thing on Qalyubi, I've not said it. I'm giving an example of people. So anybody trying to refute me on it, don't refute me. I've not said it. I'm giving an example of, is this Sharia? People saying we want Sharia. Is this Sharia, for example? Now, what determines Sharia? That's what I'm asking. I'm not saying this is a fatwa. I mean, it is a fatwa in the Shafi'i madhab, but I'm not saying go do this. You naughty, you trip me up, you naughty. So as you can see, this business of religion is an old business in which people have ruined everything. Religion really just came for that connection between man and God. That's it. This was all secondary, tertiary, quaternary. I mean, this stuff had nothing really in essence to do with the deen as in at a sacred level. All prophets that came before had different shari'ahs. They had different kind of rulings, different things, haram, halal. It was never the important thing. They were simply social remedies for people. Right, so what else is going on? Don't forget Simran. Why is Simran? Simran is aka Abu Ibrahim the Exorcist. Why, has he made a new video, has he? What did I just miss? Well, have you ever done an IQ test? I did an IQ test so many years ago. I must have been a teenager at the time. I just remember it was high. I can't remember what it was. Obviously, above average. Average to chalta hi nahi hai, boss. We can't be average. We've got to be above average. How can we take a balanced approach to the verse where Allah says, I have perfected for you your religion? No, Allah, you see, it says, Al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati wa raditu lakum al-islama dina. It's a verse of the Quran that today we have completed this deen. This deen is complete in that sense with its fundamentals. That is always been the case. As to will human beings have new rulings? Well, of course, because they'll have new issues. So somebody could say, what is the issue of buying and selling online? Well, you couldn't ask somebody from the seller 1400 years ago about, I'm buying online. Obviously, they had no idea what that would have meant. So you couldn't. So rulings will always change with the day and age. Hence, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, the great caliph or ruler of his day and age, in 100 Hijri, he said that تحدث للناس قضايا بقدر ما أحدثوا من الأمور أو من الفجور, that there will always be new rulings in this deen in accordance with the amount of issues that emerge. Khadim Rizvi is online, people. Khadim Rizvi, alright. Khadim Rizvi Sahab is in jail, right, people? Khadim Rizvi is our Pakistani Allama Sahab, right? The extremist nutcase who ordered a death warrant publicly and called for a civil war. I mean, how reckless is that? He called for a civil war and openly declared the top, like the Supreme Court judges in Pakistan, to be a kafir and wajibul qatl. That means anybody that can get hold of them and kill them should kill them. Like a public slaughter, he called. And he called for the takfir of the president of the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, calling him a kafir. And he called for the public to topple the state. And he now is hopefully he's going to serve a nice, juicy sentence under terrorism. Well, I hope it comes served very tasty for him, because what kind is this? Is this religion? Is this seriously? Is this religion? these are the kind of people. That's what he actually did. Him and that Afzal Qadri or whatever, on openly called for the public slaughter of the highest, like the Supreme Court judges in a country, Pakistan, declaring them kafir, wajibul qatl. So these people, honestly, and what he did is he's also set a kind of milestone. You see, in the past, Brelvis have not been so associated as extremist groups, but now they are. See, these Brelvis now, you're having an extremist Khawarij kind of factor emerging amongst them. Like, so in the past, the Salafis, Wahhabis were definitely extremists, some of them. Not all Wahhabis are kind of like terrorist extremists like that, but usually a lot of the kind of terrorists, Muslim terrorists, were inspired by Wahhabi kind of doctrine. So in the past, beginning with Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab himself, killing the people, wanting to topple the state, doing all that kind of stuff, killing Muslims who came on Hajj and all that kind of stuff. So later on, other Wahhabis kind of, they draw inspiration from his teachings. Hence, ISIS are pretty much unanimously Wahhabi and Salafi. So they teach Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab's books, and they do all of that, inspired by people like Ibn Taymiyyah and so on. But that's not exclusive to them. Other people have been extremists as well. So the you will get right. Okay. So right now, just had to block someone there. Good old block button. So in Pakistan as well, you had a lot of the terrorist groups, for example, Lashkar Taiba, which was a Salafi Ahl Hadith Mujahideen group that was set up, and they were then banned and proscribed by the government in recent years. They had their bank accounts seized and everything. They were an Ahl Hadith movement. You had Deobandi kind of extremist groups and factions emerge. You had Harakatul Jihad al-Islami, Jaish-e-Muhammad, all these kind of the Taliban, Tahrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, all these kind of groups that conducted explosions, bombing, killing several innocent people, some of them more than others in Pakistan, as well as other countries, killing them in India, killing them in other places. But you seldom had a Brelvi kind of Lashkar Jangvi. Lashkar Jangvi was more about killing Shia, and the Shia had an extremist one as well called what was this? It was called Sipah Muhammad, but they had a branch that I forgot what their branch was called, which was the kind of militant branch that went and killed people. So you had these people that do exist, but the Brelvis usually stayed out of this. Now, what happened is in recent times with Mumtaz Qadri, who was executed by the state of Pakistan for under terrorism laws for killing the governor of Punjab, with him and this new wave of Brelvi thought emerged that was a very extremist kind of thought, and it's shocking to find Sufis or these kind of people so extreme that they become bloodthirsty. And following on from that, you have this Khadim Rizvi and people like that. So anybody justifying these people, you need to be a bit wary. And unfortunately, some imams in Britain had been supporting Khadim Rizvi, supporting Mumtaz Qadri, supporting these people who openly murder people in the name of God. So, yeah. So I think, so that's something you gotta all be wary about. Cool. What else is going on, people? What else is going on? Right. Just a week or two back, there was this whole North Sentinelese thing going on in the news about a kind of evangelist preacher. I forgot his name. Was it David or right? Right, so what he did is he got on a kind of like a canoe kind of thing. He got on a small kind of boat and made his way across into the North Sentinelese Islands, where there is a very restricted people. So these people, let me just get his exact name because I was reading up on it. Right, so that's it, John Chau on the North Sentinel Island. So these people, for those of you who are unaware, it's a remote island, very far off, that falls into the Indian Ocean. It does come under the jurisdiction of India, but these are a remote people that have been isolated from the global community. This Christian da'i, John Chau, tried to go there to spread the word of Christ. Allah! Christ is coming, Jesus Christ. And he's gonna... Right, so he got there and they killed him. These people have been isolated from the global community for approximately 30 to maybe 40,000 years. They live there. Now they are just a very brief community, probably spanning maybe under 1,000 people now, that's all. But at one time they were much more, many more in number. Right, so looks like Christ couldn't help poor John. Yep. Looks like the Sentinelese got to him before Jesus Christ could save him. Now, this guy went there, young person, to, yes, I want to spread the word of Christ. But they are a very, they have a, put it like this, they have a very strong immigration policy. Stronger than Brexit. Right, so they do not want any immigrants. And they have a language and a culture that is unique to them. They do not allow people onto their island. The Indian government in the past few decades did attempt to make some communication. They sent somebody over and then that person just got killed as well. And whoever tries to go there, they shoot arrows at them and they just kind of shoot spears and kill them. So then the Indian government has just left them alone. Their immigration policy is much tougher than Trump's. And it's really amazing to kind of think that, wow, there are people who have been isolated on this planet for almost 30 to 40,000 years, preceding almost the last ice age, and they've just continued just between themselves. That's like, whoa, seriously, but you have to remember something. These people are from that age that their immune system wouldn't be able to really cope with modern human civilization. So you see that trying to modernize them wouldn't really work, because there are some neighboring islands that they have had some contact with in the past. Right now, in those islands, you'll see that some of those islands did try to get modernized. Okay, now what resulted was just as you'll find with Native Americans, just people got exploited, drug addictions, poverty, all of these kind of things. Nothing really good came about it. So you see that the North Sentinel Island, it is part of the kind of, I think it's called the Andanalese kind of island. So there are some other islands not too far away that did get, I don't know what the word is really, modernized, as in they tried to integrate with the modern world. India, they made contact because they fall under the Indian jurisdiction, and they did go to that part or other parts, but nothing good came of it. Now you have to remember that these people in the North Sentinel Islands, their immune system predates all of our bacteria and viruses. you cannot actually go to this island. In fact, I think it was the king of Belgium, or was he I don't know, the prime minister of Belgium or somebody, that tried to visit this island a while back. And I think as he approached, they just threw spears and the usual. So they just turned back. I think he wanted like a royal tour. You can't go there. But you have to remember something. Look, man, as in ancient man, Homo sapiens, once we embarked upon the agricultural age about 9 to 10,000 years ago, living very in close proximity to animals, spread and gave rise to a high volume of disease. Okay, because prior to that, humans lived as hunter-gatherers. They were foragers, they went, they hunted, they ate. They actually had a much less working week than people today. So on average, anthropologists say they probably had anything like a 15 to 16 hour working week. That was all. So they hunted, kept the meat, and then that meat they fed on it for whatever, a few days, hunted again. But the rest of the time they were kind of just chilling. Obviously surviving lion attacks and tiger attacks, and but they just get up and keep moving. There were no societies. Societies did not exist. Okay. So societies and all of these things are part of the agricultural movement, which is only about 10,000 years old, which comes after the Ice Age. Now, hunter-gatherers just moved around. Because they moved around, it meant that it was very difficult for them to catch diseases and things like this. So they were actually quite healthy, and hence you get a lot of people today trying to speak about the paleo diet, which is based on the hunter-gatherer. So because they didn't have any farming wasn't on the scene, it didn't exist, so they actually never used to eat many carbs. So because these things did not really exist in that quantity. So what they ate was, they did have fat, but they did have, from let's say animals, they did have meat, high protein, natural sugars from fruits and stuff like that, but they didn't have high carb kind of meals and things like this. So when humans settle down with animals and things like this and start to domesticate animals, so that they kind of caught from them a lot of diseases, and this resulted in the mass death scale of humanity. And so what you have is, let's say the human immune system, if we're going to base this, let's say immune system is 0 or 1, let's just say it's 1 because it picks up little germs and things like this. Now animals start living close to us, so we get diseases from animals. So now the immune system kind of has to fix itself, get stronger, and rises above. So it gets to 2. Then the diseases, they also catch up. So the diseases want to survive, so they mutate, so they become like, let's say, immune system. So this virus level 2, immune system level 2. And then this keeps going. So it wipes out so many people. People become resilient to the viruses. They then get a stronger immune system. The virus mutates, becomes stronger. So now, let's say we are on immune system 100, let's just say. Right now, because humanity, since the agricultural age, for thousands of years, our forefathers have been kind of developing antibodies and things like this against viruses. So the virus level is also at 100. The virus level is not at 1 anymore because our immune system is at level 100. So now to these people on these Sentinelese people, or the North Sentinel Islands, they haven't interacted with human beings like that. They haven't interacted with those kind of animals like that. They have an immune system that is still probably at level 1, 2, 3, whatever it is. They aren't used to the modern day viruses. A simple virus would just wipe out the entire island because it would be so powerful compared to their low-level immune systems. So this is why that John Chau, this person who was trying to spread the word of Jesus Christ, what he was also spreading at a nuclear level was mass disease and death. Because the slightest cold and flu and bacteria and viruses that he was carrying, whether it was chicken pox or measles or whatever he's kind of had inside him, it would have wiped out the entire population of that island. So it's a good thing that they they said, "Acha cha cha, aap aaye hain Jesus Christ ko lekar, acha cha cha." Where's our spear? So this is, but it's amazing. I am really fascinated that there are still people today that have had that pretty much like their ancestors 30 to 40,000 years ago. Wow. They speak Urdu. Of course they don't speak Urdu. They speak Urdu. Of course they don't speak Urdu. They speak, whatever they speak, some dialect of the, God knows, you can check it out. Even the people of the Andean, those kind of islands, don't actually understand them anymore. Their dialect or their language is that ancient. Right, people, what are some questions? Let's take a look. I'm going to be looking at the facts around Khidr alayhi salam. Who was Khidr? What are the stories around him? I'll look at that shortly. Let's take some of these questions. How about the crazy inbreeding they're doing? I don't know about the crazy inbreeding they're doing. What is the value of urf wal-ada in Islam? Urf wal-ada, Khadim Rizvi, just don't try and troll. If you do, right, you get right. So them islands have been destroyed. That island isn't destroyed yet, North Sentinel Island. Right, so what else, people? What are some questions? Theresa May messing up Brexit. Honestly, I do not know what's going on with the whole Brexit thing. I know recently that there was a huge hoo-ha about the government not disclosing the fact that the courts had ruled. Or was it Parliament that ruled, or the courts? But there was an official legal ruling saying that the public have the right, or the country has the right to retract Article 50 or whatever it was for Brexit. But they didn't disclose that to the public. So I was just watching this yesterday, that there's a huge hoo-ha about this, and Theresa May's just stuck. But anyway, are Shia Muslims? Of course Shia are Muslims. In fact, yesterday when I met up with some of those friends from a few decades ago, one of the brothers who was very young back then, he was a friend of mine. This was his younger brother. He was just a little kid back then, but now obviously grown up. They were Shia, and they are Shia, and he's actually been studying as well, and it was really good having a kind of that intra group dialogue. You see, this whole thing on Shia Sunni, we've got to understand, people, that people are not going to change. Okay, we've got to just realize that. Now, if somebody wants to know something, that's fine. Let's have a dialogue. If they don't, I think just leave them alone. Don't because look, if you were born a Shia, you're going to pretty much stay a Shia. If you're born a Sunni, you're going to pretty much stay a Sunni. If you're born a Muslim, it's the same thing. I mean, overall, what I'm trying to say. Now, yes, if people out of curiosity want a dialogue, we want a discussion, that's fine. You can speak, you can have a dialogue, you can engage topics, you can speak about them rationally, you can get into a whole discussion on them. But avoid promoting hate speech. Because what some of these people do in things like Hyde Park or Speaker's Corner, they just bring books and spread hate against groups. That's what I'm against. I'm not against having dialogue or even debating. If people want to debate a topic in a decent, humane way, where at the end of it you can kind of hug it out and say it's all good, then I think that's all fine. You can debate it. You can ask people, do you seriously believe that? Do you believe this? Do you believe that? And there's nothing wrong in that. I think that the Shia, the Shia are quite. I mean, I think it's interesting that they have a kind of split approach to things, like a split. Almost in some things, you find almost like a polarized effect, where on one hand they're very rational, which is amazing, but on the other hand they can be very irrational and very emotional, highly emotional. So I think, well, you know, if people wanted a dialogue on certain things, that's all good. It can, you know, that's the way forward. I mean, I don't know about it being the way forward, but that's all good. But we shouldn't be just trying to shame, embarrass, create hate. That's what I'm saying. Because what's the end game? What are we going to get out of that? Why does the Basmala not have an alif on the word ism? That is true, the word Bismillah doesn't, and that's the way it's been written, you know, from time on end. I mean, for, you know, since the beginning, Muslims have been writing Bismillah like that. Just as there's certain things like Ar-Rahman, they write there without the alif as well. So they might put an extra, but it's not, they don't write the alif, and hence Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, they will say that the whole thing, it adds up to 786. But really, if you put the alif of Rahman in there, which you do pronounce, you see, because the alif for Bismillah, you don't pronounce it. So one could argue that, well, it's not pronounced. So Bismillah. But when you say Ar-Rahman, you don't say Ar-Rahman. You say Rahman. So there's like an alif. And that's how it's written. It's on the wazn of Fa'lan. Okay. So Rahman. Okay. You'll get many kind of things on that pattern, like it's the pattern of Fa'lan, whether it's going to be things like Jo'an, Atshan, things like that. I mean, I know some grammarians have challenged if this is that. It is the same apparent pattern, but whether it's that same one for description or not. But a lot of people have said, yes, it is as well. So whether it's Atshan, Ghadban, all these kind of things. Now, you will see that Rahman, you pronounce it, but you just don't write it. So if you did go with the actual thing, it ought to be 787 and not 786. Is morality a byproduct of evolution through empathy? Mahfouz, that is a very good question. I do believe it kind of is. I believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has that morality. It exists as its kind of foundations have emerged through evolution. So you will see that there is a morality, there is an empathy in mammals. Okay, reptiles don't seem to display any empathic kind of behavior. They don't seem to demonstrate any affection even towards their young. Mammals do. So all mammals tend to kind of display empathy. They display a sense of care towards their young. Now, people have argued that caring between mother and child, mother and offspring, that kind of relationship, anthropologists have argued that may have been the foundation for morality later on. Now, this is it's very interesting because as you see this in animals, you see this in dogs, in all kinds of, and dogs are obviously, they display a great level of empathy, and people obviously love dogs, and it is fascinating because dogs are the oldest domesticated creature. So we're talking, perhaps, is it about 14,000 years ago? So before the end of the Ice Age, maybe 14 to 15, if or around those figures, that that many thousand years ago, before the Ice Age had come to an end, that man did domesticate the dog. The dog is an offspring of the wolf. Dogs are wolves. There is no, people who speak about evolution, just take a look at a wolf and take a look at a poodle. Or, like those, I forgot the name of those Peking kind of dogs, or these very small, but take a look at these dogs. They are one asal. They are wolves. There is no, dogs have emerged only through wolves. The way they look different is a result of human, the way humans have allowed them to breed, and the way humans have controlled the breeding of dogs. It has resulted in all these different kind of, these different pedigrees and these different types of dogs that we have today, is simply a result of human intervention. The Chihuahua, yes, of course. I mean, all of these are wolves. There is no two ways about that. Dogs are just wolves. So 15,000 years ago, they were simply wolves. And these wolves started to get closer to civilization. And some people, why they got closer, some people say that they were scavenging. So they went, they would feed on the meat that the humans would kind of dump and stuff like this. But they got closer, and eventually they got kind of tamed and domesticated. And then through this inbreeding that humans allowed and controlled, this is what you have. You have dogs today. And dogs are deemed so... In fact, I shared this quote of John Elia the other day, which I found fascinating. I love John Elia. He's an amazing poet. But he said, Wafadari ki jab baat aati hai, that when we come to the topic of loyalty, ashraful makhluqat kutton ki misal dete hain. He said that ashraful makhluqat, which is a name for humans, which means the most noble of creation. Right, so it's like in Urdu, when you say ashraful makhluqat, everybody understands you're talking about humans. It's like saying in English, I don't know, like when we say the king of the jungle and we're talking about animals, everybody understands you're talking about a lion. So in Urdu, when we say ashraful makhluqat, the most noble of creation, it means a human being. So he said that when it comes to the topic of loyalty, the most noble of creation give the example of dogs. That we couldn't find it in our own species to exemplify loyalty. That, ya salam. वफादारी की बात होती है तो अशरफुल मखलूक़ात कुत्तों की मिसाल देते हैं. This is the whole... So I think anyway, if you look at primates, apes and things like this, and the different monkeys, and in fact this is really fascinating. Yeah, you get me on a topic I'm interested in, this is... I actually encourage you all to look into this, that the different, the great apes and the different kind of monkeys that we have, chimps. Now, people have said that obviously all primates are related. Human beings are not from monkeys, by the way. I mean, people ought to know this, but they say that there was a common kind of source that they kind of all originate from. Gorillas, you have monkeys, chimpanzees, gorillas, and you have orangutans, and you have humans. But you see, something that was considered just part of the chimpanzees, they used to call them pygmy chimpanzees, but now they've realized they're actually a different species, is the bonobo. The bonobo is incredibly interesting, because somebody asked me a question the other week about, is nature cruel? And bonobos have a they by default are quite peaceful. It's really fascinating. They are actually, studying bonobos is so amazing. And I think those people that have studied them and written books on them, there's an amazing book by Dr. Franz de Waal, which is called The Bonobo and the Atheist. And I'm going through that currently. And it is fascinating about the morality that they have and the way they make peace all the time. They are actually they have a matriarchal society. So they have a matriarchy and not a patriarchy. So unlike chimps, who can be very cruel at times. So chimps will even kill infants. They will do things. They're not chimps. You know, people look at chimpanzees and say, ha ha, you know, they look cute. They are ruthless. If you ask people that are primatologists, they're very, very ruthless. But bonobos, on the other hand, are very peaceful. And they take care of the young within their whole group. And they're not actually... they're not generally violent, and it's just really interesting. And this whole the way they live, like I said, so even though bonobo males are physically greater than female bonobo monkeys, but yet the females seem to rule, which is a strange an interesting phenomenon. But yeah, so they have they have morality at their scale. Now, human beings, obviously, we have a much more sophisticated morality. But my point of saying this is, I think that Allah has created insan with a kind of instinct, a morality instinct, which is a morality base. It's a very raw base. It's like our language base. And a language instinct, which is very raw. So whichever society you're born in, your language instinct can evolve and mutate to pick up that language. In a similar way, I feel that morality, wherever we are, it kind of evolves to our day and age. So that's my thoughts on morality. I think it's definitely very fascinating. How about the Ashab Kahf dog? What will happen to it in the hereafter? God knows what will happen to it in the hereafter. I mean, people have said that the dog will be in Jannah. People have said things like this, but people, Allahu A'lam. Are you familiar with the masked Arab? No, I'm not actually. I don't know what the masked Arab is. I don't know what that is. Can we as converts continue to read the Bible? Yes, of course you can continue to read the Bible. You can take inspiration. You can read anything. Look, there is a hadith, and even though some people may critique the chain and stuff, but the meaning is correct. That it's a teaching which says, Kalimatul hikmah dalatul mu'min. That the word of wisdom is the lost property of a believer. أَيْنَمَا وَجَدَهَا فَهُوَ أَحَقُّ بِهَا. That wheresoever he or she finds it, they are more deserving of it. So if you find wisdom in reading certain books or certain scriptures, then by all means you can do that. You can take inspiration from there as well. Fazlu Kareem asks, in the hadith about the Bi'ru Buda'a, scholars say the well was fit to bathe in, although it was a filthy well. How can this be correct, as the well was small and water stagnant? Right, Fazlu, I'm told not to sit with Ahlul Bid'ah. What is this about? Masked Arab is the ex-Muslim channel. Oh, I think I may have come across something, but I've not really watched too much of it. Yes, you should check out the Masked Arab. Mufti Hajrul Aswad. Right, do you believe that surpassing the evolution due to cognitive revolution is good for humans? Surpassing the evolution due to cognitive revolution is good for humans. I'm not so sure what that question means. Masked Arab is an ex-Muslim spreading anti-Islamic videos on YouTube. Okay, I'll check out some of them. I mean, you see, I do watch some ex-Muslim videos and things like this. It depends. There's some ex-Muslims, I will watch their things. People like, I'll watch different people's things, but it comes up on YouTube sometimes. I watched watch kind of snippets. I may not watch the whole thing, but Abdullah Samir is a popular kind of ex-Muslim who does a lot of videos, and I do find him to be quite. I find him to be quite sincere in what he's doing. There are others. Abdullah Gondal does. I've seen some of his things. There is another person. I've forgotten his name now. It's he has. It's called something. Is it called the Prophet or something like? It's called. I've forgotten now. I think it might be the Apostate Prophet or something like this. I don't really that guy's stuff. I've seen a few of them. Vidu vid stuff I find quite respectful, to be fair. That Apostate Prophet person, I've watched a few of his things. I don't watch his things anymore, to be honest with you, because I just found him very like the sole purpose. I don't know if this is his purpose, but what comes across is the sole purpose is to just offend Muslims. Like, I just want to like, it's way too venomous. Like, I don't like that vibe. Okay, I don't mind people saying things that may be offensive. I don't mind people saying things that may be offensive. I feel we can, we as Muslims should be able to take it. It's not about, but then there's people who appear to be just full of hatred, like they, like just soaked in bitter kind of venom, and everything they spew is pure hatred. Like, that kind of vibe, I dislike that vibe utterly. So I remember watching one or two clips by this person, and then I just never again. I thought that, like this, I just don't, even if it wasn't against Islam, even if somebody was doing that against Hinduism or against Christianity, I would not watch it. Because I just, I just don't like that kind of vibe. I don't like people just full of hatred and full of venom. And if somebody is going to say something, and even if it's offensive, but they're not necessarily full of hatred, they're just trying to show something, and maybe they might say something which might take the mick, or they might have a laugh, or they might, that kind of stuff, I'll listen to it. I'll hear what they've got to say. Saad Gad. I watched one clip of that Saad Gad, which was some show of his on the Rogan show, and it was utterly disappointing. It was just a pure anti-Muslim, and the stuff he was saying was just nonsense. So I was just disappointed. I wouldn't really watch him. I'm not really too interested. But like I said, people have been decent. Even if they're going to say things which are offensive, if I come across it, I'll watch it to see what do they have to say. And I'll try to, because remember, what's bothering them is bothering maybe thousands of people. So it's always good to see, and maybe, because I feel as Muslims, we should be secure enough to answer anything. Like, I think if you have a question, you should be able to ask it. And I will try to answer. If I can't answer, I should be able to look into it to be able to answer, because I feel that Islam does have an answer to whatever objection is being presented. So, and I'm confident about that. So I'm not scared or intimidated in listening to people criticizing Islam. I will listen to it. But it's just so long as they're not full of hatred. That's all. So if they are full of hatred, that Mufassil Islam, not really too interested in his, because once again, I watched a clip a while back where him and I don't know who the other guy was, I don't know whether he was an imam or he was a Muslim, some religious person, I think from America, and they had this kind of shouting thing going on. It came up on Facebook, and somebody was sharing it, and so I saw it, and it began like this, like they're having a two-way kind of dialogue. So I don't know whether it was Instagram or Facebook or what. But that person, the American Muslim person, says to him, yes, so what's up? And then something like that. And he says, well, Islam is a piece of crap. And that's how the dialogue began. And then that guy says, well, I think you're a piece of crap. And then he goes, oh, I never insulted you. Why are you insulting me? And so he says, well, you know, blah, 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 blah. And it goes back and forth. And I was just like, this is just nonsense. I mean, that's seriously not the way to have a dialogue. But in all honesty, I did feel like saying, I mean, not that I would want to speak to him, because I don't want to speak to people who are full of hatred. But I would say that, look, in that case, his whole, this person, Mufassil, in that clip that I saw, he was saying to the other person, why are you offending me when I'm simply insulting a religion? I'm not insulting you. But my argument to that would be that, look, what's wrong? Let me just ask. What is wrong with insulting you? Like, if I'm going to be just simple, like, let's reduce this argument. What is wrong with, like, I'm not hurting you physically. What's wrong with insulting you? Like, well, why would you say that I don't have the right to insult you? Like, actually swear at you. Why not? So, like, what grounds do you feel that you have a kind of like indemnity in being protected from, or nobody can violate your mental space by swearing? Why not? So, and you'd say, well, because really you wouldn't have anything to say. Like, what could anybody possibly say? I can understand them physically harming you, but you would say, well, that's physical, causing physical. Now here you see, whatever argument you would use, they would also use in maintaining the peace about religion. You see, so I think, like, when some atheists or ex-Muslims, they just attack religion in an insulting way, and they feel that it's okay to insult religion, but it's not okay to insult people personally, then where does that, God-given sacrosanct right emerge from? It doesn't emerge from anywhere. Because where would you get, we don't have no absolute categorical right that nobody can insult us, but this is just human courtesy. That we believe that as human beings, we shouldn't insult other people. So I feel that, look, we generally speaking, we should have respect for all religions. Generally speaking, we don't need to believe in them. We don't need to, but just the thought that, well, a lot of people do adhere to it, so let's have respect for it. That said, now you might debate certain topics, and at times I understand that I do feel that people have the right to kind of satirize. They do have the right to kind of make fun of concepts that they don't believe in. And I know this may seem contradictory, what I'm saying now, but it's not, because it's one of those things that's difficult to express, but it's in reality, it can be perceived. So you can tell when somebody finds a concept ridiculous, that they will laugh and joke at it, but they will still respect the religion in essence. Like, they will have that respect for they're not trying to, and it's difficult putting this in words sometimes, this separation of, that's what I'm saying. I am all for free speech, but I am against hate speech, if that makes sense. Right, so, anyway, what else is going on, people? What is your opinion on that? Well, that is my opinion on hate speech and free. Apparently, Tommy endorses that Shia Imam. Which Shia? Oh, Imam Tawhidi. Oh, he probably does endorse him. I think cancer wins at... doesn't make sense. What I'm saying doesn't make sense. Right, okay. I can see the difficulty. What I'm trying to say is that at a generic level, generically speaking, that there should be respect for what people have, like as in like some kind of harmony in allowing people to exist in the way they are. That said, you can challenge concepts, you can ridicule. That is true. I feel that people do have the right to do that, but it shouldn't just be outright like swearing at. Like I shouldn't just say, look, like if somebody wanted to ridicule Islam, I feel they have the right to ridicule it. If they're not a Muslim, they have the right. I feel that they do have the right to say, well, oh, this doesn't make any sense. Ha ha ha. They can say stuff like that. They can do that. But just to non-stop swear at Islam, to say like, okay, yeah, I'm making a live video now. Islam is so full of crap. Islam is so full of blah, 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 blah. Beep, 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 beep. Islam is beep, 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 beep. Islam is... Like, this is wrong. That's what I'm saying. If I can simplify it to that. So we don't need to swear. That's what I'm saying. Don't need to swear at religion. But if you want to satirize or ridicule concepts within it, if you're not a Muslim, you have the right to do that. I feel you do. And I feel that we as Muslims, we should be secure enough to be able to answer any objections. Do I believe in miracles? Human beings are the greatest miracle, honestly. Look at us. I mean, is it just this week, was it, that they've landed that the robots on Mars, and they've started to measure the tremors and things like this, and you could hear the sound of the wind and things like this, the movement on Mars. Amazing, man. This is... Human beings have done this. Wow. We, honestly, it's... You know, when you think about it, it's just... They've operated on a grape. They have. So, the fact we haven't wiped ourselves out yet is a miracle. That is a miracle. Freedom of speech should not be the freedom to offend. You see, there's a difference. I feel that freedom of speech does contain the right to offend. I accept that. But I feel that as a society, we recognize what swearing is. And it shouldn't be just swearing. That's what I'm saying. You do have the right to kind of satirize, ridicule concepts that don't make sense to you. But you shouldn't be swearing. That's what I'm saying. Because like this kind of just swearing is stupid, and it's just inflammatory. That's what I'm saying. Right. So when I read a hadith that says a tree attacks someone, how am I supposed to deal with that? There's no such thing as a tree attacking someone, David Pitts. That is definitely a fabricated or a weak hadith. There's no unrestricted free speech anywhere on earth. I accept that, Subhi. That is a valid statement. Okay, and obviously, and I don't think they should be unrestricted. So people shouldn't be calling to racism. They shouldn't be calling to hate, inciting violence and things like this. And Mufti Suleiman spoke to a bird. The bird told him what? Bunch of things in a language. Is that supernatural? Please watch my clip on Suleiman alayhi salam. Him speaking, first of all, Hudhud, I don't believe Hudhud was a bird. I believe it was a person. Because if you read I actually go through in detail, Allah in the Quran uses the pronouns and uses the plural, which is only used for human beings. So it's not used for animals when he's speaking of Hudhud. So just to kind of... thoughts on the gene editing controversy in China. I need to really read up more on that, or find out more on the gene editing. Generally, when Allah says that Suleiman alayhi salam, allamnahu mantiq at-tayr, this kind of bird whispering and things like this, this is, as many of the mufassirin, like people like Sheikh Allama Abdul Karim al-Athari in his tafsir, Urwatul Wuthqa, and other people say, this is the same as people who, it's a skilled art that some humans possess in being able to communicate at a low level with animals, like horse whispering, like the way they train horses, or the way people communicate with dogs, or the way people communicate with certain birds. So Suleiman alayhi salam was given that as a gift, to be able to kind of whisper, that bird whispering. That's what it didn't mean that he had conversations. So when people do horse whispering or this, they don't like, so how was your day, and have a full-on conversation. So what do you think about Brexit? That's not what it means. It means that they can communicate at a low level and they understand and they have a connection. That's what it means. Some would say an angel speaking to a man is not logical and beyond reason. That's absolutely true. But what does that mean? An angel and a man, and is this the kind of divine inspiration? Are these terms used in a way for human beings to understand things, that to relate to things that they couldn't normally relate to? That's what I would say. Does it mean, you see, a lot of the imagery that comes later on, and people use it for simple folk to kind of understand and make sense of. So the ant as well, I mentioned that the ant and Suleiman alayhi salam, that there's two responses to that. The main understanding, as I mentioned in the tafsir, I go through this in much detail, please watch my clip. The main thing is he was shown this as a vision, that the ants are even seeking, like, look how their empathy, that because the ants are actually an incredible creature. They're the only creatures to have domesticated species before human beings did. And domesticated plants as well. Domesticated plants, and they domesticated bugs before human beings domesticated other creatures and domesticated agriculture. So they kind of beat us to it. So that's a fascinating thing in itself. But he's shown that, look, if ants at this level are showing this structure and care, because ants, they work as a solid unit, then he has a greater sense of responsibility over his kingdom. That's what was the moral of the vision that he was shown of the ants. Are Sahaba sinless? No, Sahaba are not sinless. Nobody claims, or they shouldn't be claiming, that the Sahaba were infallible. Do Ash'aris believe anything bad about Ali radiallahu anh in hadith should be rejected? I'm not sure what that means. What is a Nasibi? Nasibi is a term that was used about people against the initial Shia, or that people that were allegedly hated on Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anh. I think in the past, it may be in the time of Muawiyah and Ali, and when they were fighting, and other people, it may have had some kind of reality. I think later on it's just a slur that is used for people who weren't so pro the Ahlul Bayt, that kind of thing. But I think it's a very politically sectarianized, sectarian-laden label. So it's a label with a lot of sectarian energy that is then projected onto people. Right, okay, can we curse Yazid? Look, some scholars said you could curse Yazid. People like Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal said that, and other scholars said no, you shouldn't do things like this. Imam Abu Hanifa and other people did not used to curse. Imam Malik didn't curse Yazid and things like this. I would say, look, there's nothing good out of cursing. It's not about... personally, if people can do whatever the hell they want. But I wouldn't bring up a generation on people, a generation of people on hatred. This deen is not one built upon hatred. It ought to be built upon compassion, right? So I'm not really down with this whole thing of trying to teach people to curse characters, even if they were bad characters, even if they were. I mean, first of all, nobody ever is 100% bad and nobody ever is 100% good in that sense. So, I mean, but we may think that somebody was messed up, and we may have a very bad opinion of them. Fair enough. I think we're entitled to hold our opinions. But I don't think you should really bring people up and cultivate them, and I mean, kind of inculcate them with these, with this venom and hatred of saying you should curse, you should curse. What kind of a religion is this? And really, that is one of the shortcomings, really, I think, of the Shia especially. In my opinion, I think this is something that some Shia, alhamdulillah, I think have picked up on. But that this emotional side of these has given a really bad image to their whole existence to the Shia thing, like this beating yourself, cutting yourself, whipping yourself, cursing. It becomes a very dark and a very bad image that people have then. So yeah. Mufti's opinion on Dr. Tahir-ul-Qadri. Generally, you see, Dr. Tahir-ul-Qadri, I think he's done a lot of great things, and obviously he's had controversies. He's said different things in the past, and he's taken different... I know he took a very academic approach at one point, published a hell of a lot of books. I don't think any Brilvi scholar in recent times has rivaled him in maybe the number of books he published. He did tafsir, then he got really academic. He went into hadith. He did his project on Sahih Muslim. I commend that. I mean, he liaised with Arab scholars. He's probably one of the only Brilvi scholars in recent times. I know in the past, the legend Pir Karam Shah Sahab, may Allah have mercy on him, was a great symbol that did things like that. But in recent times, we don't really see any Brilvis doing things like that. And then he went off into other directions as well, this Pir kind of direction, I think, with miracles and things. Then I think he went into a political angle and did that. And so I think there's naturally, like any person, there's going to be criticisms there. I don't really have any strong opinion against him at all. I would respect him. I did visit his place in Karachi and met the people there. But so I have respect. I mean, it doesn't mean I agree with necessarily his views, but yeah. How many languages do you speak? I don't speak enough, man. I don't speak enough. He even spoke to the dead. Yeah, this kind of stuff is weird. Let's get on to this Khidr. Speaking about miracles, people. So, somebody had asked me about Khidr alayhi salam, and what is this whole thing about Khidr? What do you make of Ertugrul becoming a Mahdi-like figure? There's a whole Ertugrul cult emerging. People are becoming obsessed with this Ertugrul. I actually haven't watched it, but right. So on that thought, people have asked me about Khidr. Those of you that have heard about Khidr, no, not. Sometimes people say Khizr, and from there in English, Kaiser. Kaiser does sound slick though, yeah. You gotta say, Kaiser. Kaiser Soze. Kaiser Soze. That was a Don movie. Usual Suspects. Epic, people, epic. Right, but, right, so, I thought, well, let's lean in on this book. Al-Hadhr fi Amr al-Khadr. Now, this was written by Mullah Ali al-Qari, a great Hanafi scholar from a few centuries back, who wrote on the topic of Khidr. Now, Khidr alayhi salam, who was Khidr? Okay, Khidr is this character that exists in Islamic literature and in Islamic belief, and especially in Islamic folk belief. Right, so first of all, what's his name? A lot of the people in the past, the scholars tend to prefer the name Khidr. Now, nowadays, what seems to be more popular amongst people is Khidr. It can be said as Khidr, it can be said as Khidr, it can be said as Khadir, it can be, I mean, people have used any of these and many of these kind of names. This wasn't his actual name, per se. His name, once again, we're going to come to what his actual name... People have allegedly said, so Mullah Ali al-Qari feels in this book that his name was Balya. Balya. Sounds a bit desi, doesn't it? Like a desi nickname, Balya. His name was Balya. I don't know where on earth he got that from. And his kunya was apparently Abul Abbas. I don't know where he got that one from. But, so, who was this Khidr? Khidr or Khadir means the one to do with green. Why they call him green is apparently because where he would sit, that piece of land, that piece of soil would turn green. So this is what some people say. Some people say no, because he would carry something that's green. And they've got different versions for why he was called Khidr. Now, what is this whole story about? What is this emergence? And this is important because he is the character, the person that people say Allah is referring to in Surah Al-Kahf. So if I open for us, if we go to Surah Al-Kahf, right, A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajeem, when we approach verse 60 in Surah Kahf, Allah mentions وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِفَتَاهُ لَا أَبْرَحْ that I حَتَّى أَبْلُغَ مَجْمَعَ الْبَحْرَيْنِ أَوْ أَمْضِيَ حُقُبًا. Now this is a story of Moses begins at this stage in Surah Al-Kahf. And then it's about Moses and his assistant, his kind of companion, this young man who in the hadith you'll see is Yusha ibn Nun, Joshua, and they set off on this journey. فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَجْمَعَ بَيْنِهِمَا نَسِيَ حُوتَهُمَا فَاتَّخَذَ سَبِيلَهُ فِي الْبَحْرِ سَرَبًا. And they reach this place and they take some rest and they forget they have this fish, and the fish kind of jumps out into the sea. Then they go off, and the whole point is that they are told that that was the place we were meant to go to, where these two seas meet. And here they meet, it mentions فَوَجَدَ عَبْدًا مِنْ عِبَادِنَا آتَيْنَاهُ رَحْمَةً مِنْ عِنْدِنَا وَعَلَّمْنَاهُ مِنْ لَدُنَّا عِلْمًا. That they found a slave of ours, and this slave had been given certain knowledge. And him and Moses go on this journey. فقال لهم موسى هل أتبعك على أن تعلمني مما علمت رشدا. So he asks him, can I go with you on this journey? And he says to him that this servant says that, look, you won't be able to keep up with me, and you won't be able to be patient enough to put up with me. And Moses tells him, no, I will. And they set off on this journey. And on this journey, this person, Khidr or Khidr, I will call him Khidr, I prefer Khidr. Khidr, he embarks on certain tasks and adventures. Amongst them, they embark on a ship, and he purposely damages the ship. And then in another place, he murders a child. And then in another place, he rectifies a broken wall. Moses, on each of these occasions, objects heavily, and each time is reprimanded for not being able to maintain his promise of staying silent. And then Moses apologizes on each occasion. And then eventually he is told some of the secrets, and Khidr says to him that وَمَا فَعَلْتُهُ عَنْ أَمْرِي, that that's not something that I did out of my choice, but this is what God had instructed or inspired me to do. So now the elaboration of this hadith we find in Sahih Bukhari. Okay, so, and this is where we actually find the greater detail. So this hadith in Sahih Bukhari, and there's several hadith to do with Moses and Khidr, spanning several pages, but this particular one in the book of Tafsir, where you have hadith 4724, after that, beginning 4725, وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِفَتَاهُ لَا أَبْرَحُ حَتَّى أَبْلُغَ مَجْمَعَ الْبَحْرَيْنِ أَوْ أَمْضِيَ حُقُبًا. So Musa says that I will go, and he tells Joshua that I will go. So in this hadith, it begins with Sa'id ibn Jubayr saying to Ibn Abbas that there's a person called Nawfal Bikali. Now Nawfal Bikali was somebody that would tell tales, he was an orator. He said that the Moses of Khidr was a different Moses. So he was saying this in their day and age. So Sa'id ibn Jubayr tells this to Ibn Abbas. Ibn Abbas objects and says, كَذَبَ عَدُوَ اللَّهِ, that he's lying. I heard Ubay ibn Ka'ab tell me that the Prophet said, إِنَّ مُوسَى قَامَ خَطِيبًا فِي بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ فَسُئِلَ أَيُّ النَّاسِ أَعْلَمُ. So Musa one day stood and he preached, and he said to people that somebody asked him, Bani Israel, the Israelites, who is the most knowledgeable of people? So he said, I am, because he was a prophet of God. So at this stage, that he is told by God that actually there's other people more knowledgeable than you. Why don't you set off on this journey? And he goes on this journey, and فَأَوْحَى اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِ إِنَّ لِي عَبْدًا. So Allah tells him, I have a servant who is بِمَجْمَعَ الْبَحْرَيْن, at a particular location where the two seas unite. He is more knowledgeable than you. So he sets about on this journey. He's told to take a fish with him and carry it. So they go on. They set off. وَانْطَلَقَ مَعَهُ بِفَتَاهُ. So he's Yusha ibn Nun. So Joshua, it mentions in Sahih Bukhari, his companion's name is Joshua. حَتَّى إِذَا أَتَيَ الصَّخْرَ, until they reach this big boulder, this big rock. وَضَعَ رَؤُوسَهُمَا, they place their heads down, they lay their heads, فَنَامَا, and they go to sleep. Now this is a really interesting point. Why? Because this is where a lot of, I feel, the scholars in the past, for whatever reasons, overlooked this. The rest of everything that happens whilst they were asleep. It was a vision. Right? So this thing of them going to sleep here, as it mentions and it alludes to in the Quran, that they go to this place, and then Joshua sees that the fish takes a unique path into the sea, as the verse of the Quran mentions, that it says, look, فَاتَّخَذَ سَبِيلَهُ فِي الْبَحْرِ سَرَبًا. And then Moses says to him as they set off, then they get up and they walk off, and then later Moses says to him, I'm hungry, where's that fish? And he says, oh, but the fish, it jumped into the sea, but it went in such a strange way. It kind of emerged, and the reason it was doing this is all this was a vision. They never emerged from that sleep. The rest of everything that happens in a dream, in a vision. Right, so he goes and they say, oh really, is that where, let's go back to that place. And they can see that this fish, the Mufassirin say that the water around it is like, so as it's kind of taking its kind of unique path into the sea, the water around it is making a formation. The water is kind of standing up around it. It's keeping itself from collapsing, and it's really strange. So they're like, wow, what is this about? And then there they find this person, Khidr. And in certain stories that wherever he sits, the land turns green. And that's because this is all a vision. It's happening within a vision. Hence you see that, look, all of a sudden, you will find that they then, as they carry on, all of a sudden they're upon a boat. So many of the Salaf discuss how was Khidr on this boat puncturing, creating a hole in this boat so it can drown. So what he does is he damages this boat so it will start to sink. And because it's damaged, the person that was about to kind of rob the boat will let it be. But the question that the Salaf asked is, when he was damaging this boat, the people on the boat, they weren't blind. I mean, if you're on a boat and somebody's damaging it, why did they let him do this? So Abu al-Aliya from the Salaf and other people, they said that's because he was invisible to them. You see, now this is the thing. And then all of a sudden they're no longer on this boat. And then they're traveling and they see this boy. And he murders this boy. And Musa alayhi salam says to him, لَقَدْ جِئْتَ شَيْئًا نُكْرًا, what on earth have you done? أَكَتَلْتَ نَفْسًا زَكِيًّا بِغَيْرِ نَفْسٍ, that you murdered an innocent soul. So the Prophet Moses is condemning what he's done. And he says to him, look, I told you can't be patient. And then they go and they find a wall. All of a sudden they're at a town where this wall is dilapidating, and Khidr rectifies this wall, and he fixes it. And he asks Moses, and then Moses says to him, look, why didn't you take, these people of this village were rude to us. They didn't even offer us, because in that day and age, there was like a global custom, or especially in that regional custom, that when you went past a village, if there were strangers, you would offer them food or water. That was a custom. But these people ignored Moses and Khidr. They completely blank them. And yet Khidr fixes their wall and does work for them. And so Moses says to him, why didn't you at least charge them for this? We should have taken something from them. We worked, we gave labor to them. So, and then at this stage, Khidr says, that's it. Hada firaqu, he says, this is hada firaqu bayni wa baynik. This is it. We now, it all ends here. You go your way, I go my way. Now the question is, how were they shifting from all these paradigms? And then he tells Moses that, okay, I'll tell you what I was doing. That child was going to cause great harm, and Allah was going to replace that child with another child, and that ship was going to get robbed, and these things, and so on and so forth. The ship, that there was a king, kana wara'ahum malikun ya'khudhu kulla safinatin ghasba, that there was a king that was snatching every ship. Now the reason for this was that, you see, the reason for all of this was that there was a moral. Now a lot of the scholars in the past took this as a literal kind of reading. Now when they took it as a literal reading, they kind of got stuck, because now they had to explain a lot of what was going on. So they had to say, first of all, who was Khidr? So this became a question. So now when they said, okay, who was Khidr? Some of them said, well, first of all, was he a prophet? So this became the first kind of debate. So many people said that, oh, and this, once again, you're going to get a hell of a lot of debate and discussion going on here. So you're going to have scholars that say, okay, he was a prophet. فَقِيلَ إِنَّهُ النَّبِي. Then they say, was he a prophet sent to the people? Or he wasn't sent to any people? So they disagree once again. You're going to get people like Ibn al-Jawzi, coming from the Salaf, Ibn Abbas. There's transmissions from him, from Wahb ibn Munabbih. They say he was a prophet sent to people. That's why, because he says, مَا فَعَلْتُ عَنْ أَمْرِي. I didn't do this myself. God commanded me to do this. And God only commands prophets. So Ibn al-Jawzi took this position. Muhammad ibn Ishaq. And so they had this understanding that he must have been a prophet then. But he wasn't sent to. Imam Nawawi says, وَالَّذِي عَلَيْهِ الْأَكْثَرُونَ أَنَّهُ كَانَ نَبِيًّا. So he was a prophet. Most of the people say that. Yet you have people like Baghawi, Hafid al-Baghawi, saying that most of the scholars say he was not a Nabi. And other people challenge him for saying that. Then some people said, okay, he wasn't a Nabi, he was a wali. He was a holy person. And this is like Abul Qasim al-Qushayri in his Risala of Tasawwuf. He mentions that. Then you had another discussion. Is he somebody who lives right throughout the ages? So you have people like Imam Nawawi saying that majority of the scholars believe that he is still alive and amongst us. So he's like living amongst us, this soul who kind of travels amongst human beings. Ibn Salah says, huwa hayyun inda jamahir al-ulama. So he says that this is, even though Ibn Salah says, even though some muhaddithin denied this. And so you get this kind of understanding. Some people said he will then combine with the Mahdi. Khidr, the Mahdi and Jesus. They will all get together fi Masjid al-Haram on a Jum'ah. So you have these kind of stories that emerged. You had people like Abdul Razzaq al-Kashi, who was a Sufic scholar from the 8th century, who actually said Khidr was not even a real person. He was simply a symbolism, that Allah meant giving, that this kind of an expansion in the universe was symbolized by this character of Khidr. And he mentions that Ilyas alayhi salam, another prophet that is mentioned in the Quran that we don't know much about, but there's a lot of stories around, was about the kind of caving in. So these were opposites. So this was Abdul Razzaq, Sheikh Abdul Razzaq al-Kashi from about 700 years ago. Saharwardi in his book said that Khidr alayhi salam has told us 300 hadith. Haddathana, that he told him and the people in his time. Hadith that he actually heard from the Prophet. Shabash. This is, So it went to this extent. And then obviously some scholars said, look, like Hafid al-Iraqi said, look, let's behave ourselves. That Khidr is not somebody who transmits hadith, okay. Now, so most people felt that, look, Khidr was a prophet. Even Imam Ghazali went that way. Right, so the whole thing, then they have all these interpretations. Why did he do these things? Why did he kill the boy? Why did God allow him to commit murder? And they said, well, oh, this was to save the family later on, because the family were going to later on really suffer at the hands of this child, so God was going to replace him. So you have all of these kind of things, and some people obviously challenged this whole thing. Certain Muslims felt that Khidr and Ilyas both are alive. These two prophets still roam the earth, and they meet every year at Hajj. Okay, so this, and that they have drank from the, what they say, shariba min aynil hayat, from the elixir of life, so they can't die. This is one of the interpretations. And some people feel that these two, Khidr alayhi salam and Ilyas alayhi salam, meet every night. They roam around the earth and they meet. And then other people challenge this. People said, look, that's not true. Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah said there's no such hadith that Khidr alayhi salam is alive. All these things are false. Ibn Taymiyyah took that understanding. Other people, I believe Ibn al-Jawzi may have gone that way. Ibn Kathir, they used the verse of the Quran that وَمَا جَعَلْنَا لِبَشَرٍ مِّن قَبْلِكَ الْخُلْدِ, we have never given any humans eternal life. The Imam Bukhari is allegedly of this opinion that no, Khidr died. He died, and they use the hadith as an example that the Prophet said, أَرَأَيْتَكُمْ لَيْلَتَكُمْ هَذِهِ, do you see this night? There will not be a single person on the planet today that 100 years from today is still alive. Meaning that death comes over us all. So they say Imam Bukhari used that as a dalil. Then people have all these stories that, oh no, he did exist. Then they say, well, if he existed, why didn't he meet the Prophet and the companions? So then people say he did. They come up with these stories, like in the Mustadrak of Al-Hakim, you have stories Mullah Ali Qari brings that he went and gave condolences to the companions. Then people say, oh, he met the Prophet. Some people say he will live and eventually will fight the Dajjal. Then you have all these other stories of like people saying they saw Khidr, like Ibn al-Mubarak saying, especially a lot to do with the battlefield. So every time there's this kind of like they saw somebody, Ibn al-Mubarak saying, I met this person he approached my horse and he was like this, and then I saw him on the battlefield, and then I saw him here, and this was Khidr. And so basically what you have is any time throughout history, under certain ominous kind of circumstances, a kind of awe-striking figure is met. People in their folk belief felt that that was Khidr. The way the Christians kind of had this with Saint George or with other people, that we saw Saint George when we were in Jerusalem, and we saw this. And so every time Muslims were kind of going on certain battles, or they met a certain strange, kind of figure that is kind of acting like kind of almost ominously strange and odd, and might say some words of wisdom, and then you don't see him, and they felt, oh, that must have been Khidr alayhi salam. So this whole issue arises. Why? Because Muslims felt that they needed to explain who this character was. Why? Even though the Quran doesn't mention him as Khidr, but in Sahih Bukhari you have this hadith, right, that he was called Khidr. And then if he's an actual person, if he's a person, how could he do all these things? Oh, well, he must be a prophet. Well, if he's a prophet, was he sent to a people? No, he wasn't sent to a people, but he was instructed. So if he used to go around interfering in nature, killing people and building things and drowning ships, or with hidden kind of greater good, then does he still continue to do that? And then people felt, yes, of course, he's still alive. And in fact, he's still amongst us, as Imam Nawawi and Ibn Salah and all these people, and Suyuti and all these people felt. And the truth is, people, look, from a folklore perspective, people of all religions have kind of believed in these kind of things. It's nothing unique to that kind of Muslim folklore. You will see people in Christianity believing that saints are still kind of, these ancient saints still kind of roam amongst them. In Hindu mythology, you'll have about avatars kind of roaming around amongst people, interfering with the divine laws of nature and stuff like this. But from a objective perspective, there is no such thing as Khidr alayhi salam like that. Okay, the truth is that this was all a vision. It was all in a dream, and the reason Musa alayhi salam was shown that dream was not that vision. Was not really. It was to reinforce his own mission. You see, because the three events that took place in that dream were deeply connected to the life and mission of Moses alayhi salam. You see, Moses, in this particular dream, you will see that they embark upon this ship and they damage this ship. So something being very damaged, okay, but yet it has a greater good that will come out of this. You see, the Israelites, the way they had been damaged, the way Moses had to lead them out of their kind of calamity, this was to reinforce his mission. That can these Israelites actually make it? These people who are constantly pestering and annoying the Prophet, these people that have been damaged for generations now, that even though they've undergone this damage and they're trying to go back to this kingdom of God on earth, they're trying to head back to Jerusalem, that this has some hidden khair in it. The fact that Khidr murders this child, he didn't murder him in real life. God would never allow anybody to murder a child. That would be absurd. Because if you're going to say, well, it was for a greater good, then why not murder all the other children? Right? That doesn't make any sense. Right? Because if you're going to say, well, God murdered this child because the child was going to grow up and turn them into a kafir, well then what about all the other kafirs on earth? Why didn't God murder their children? What an absurd thing. That belief will never... You see, in Moses, in his life, he had committed accidentally murder. He had murdered a person in a fight. So it got into a fight with one of the Egyptian Pharaoh's soldiers, and he had hit him, resulting in his death, from which Moses had fled. Now, this thing was always bothering Moses, that, I accidentally killed that person. And this incident, or in the vision where he was to witness that actually that did happen, yes, but there was a greater good. That because of that you fled. And because of you fleeing, a great journey of prophethood and the salvation of the Israelites began to unfold. So this was to do with Moses witnessing this murder of this child in his vision, not in reality. And as to building this wall and Moses being like kind of frustrated, why didn't you charge them? This was because Moses was fed up with the behavior of the Israelites, because they were pestering him. Even when he goes to Mount Sinai, he comes back, they've built a golden calf. What is this about? وَرَجَعَ مُوسَى إِلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ غَضْبَانَ أَسِفًا. That Moses comes back and he's angry. فَأَلْقَى الْأَلْوَاحَ. He threw the kind of tablets. That he was so angry that what on earth is wrong with you people? But Allah was showing in this vision that, look, yes, these people, the villagers disrespected them. They didn't host them well. Because Moses, you see, Moses dies before the Israelites reach Jerusalem. They don't actually enter. Moses does not enter Jerusalem. He dies before the Israelites actually make it across the Jordan River and into Jerusalem. He never sees the fruits of his whole mission. But God shows him in this vision that yes, the wall right now is dilapidated, but these orphans will grow up and beneath it is a treasure which will manifest in the great, magnificent kingdom of David and Solomon, serving and playing out to be one of the most powerful kingdoms on earth in its time. That this was a manifestation. So all of these three incidents related deeply to the life and mission of Moses alayhi salam. So this is what Khidr alayhi salam was. He was part of that vision. He's not actually a real person. And he's not actually somebody who roams around amongst us interfering in that sense. Unless you're using that term symbolically. Okay. So symbolically, I guess you could say things like that. But in Muslim folklore, many Muslims believe he is a person, he's roaming around and he's doing all these things. But that's not actually real. I mean, many Muslims might believe that, but that's not actually true. Cool, guys. I hope that made some sense. I hope it helped certain people, inshallah. Whoa, people, whoa. That's taken us way beyond certain people's bedtimes. All right, folks, with that, I think we're going to wrap it up. I hope things... somebody said many prophets have many allegations against them. Do, inshallah, let me know. I will try to respond. I do feel that Muslims, we have a duty to respond. And I feel that we should never be insecure about our faith. But at the same time, we should remove these cobwebs of folklore, superstition and mythology. I feel we should remove them and we should be confident about our faith, but that does involve exploring certain aspects and answering them where that's necessary. Right, so with that, people, hell yeah, vampire sessions. So, subhanallah wa ta'ala amma yasifun, Allah is praised and above and transcendent above that which they attribute and ascribe to him of being cruel and things like this. وَأَفْضَلُ الصَّلَاةِ وَالسَّلَامَ عَلَى الْقَائِلِ الْمَمْنُونَ, and the best of salutations and blessings upon the messenger who said, الْمَدِينَةُ خَيْرٌ لَهُمْ لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ, that indeed Medina and its school people is much better for them if but only they knew. With that, people, take very good care of yourselves, inshallah. Do like this page if you haven't already. Subscribe to my YouTube channel for regular updates. Spread the word, people. Spread love. Take very good care of yourselves. Inshallah. Till next week. Take good care and we'll speak then. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.